And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. Legendary Bishop Marvin Winans is at the center of controversy tonight. This is after a viral video. Before we show you that video, he has since come out and said it was misunderstood. What he was trying to do was keep order in the church and make sure people were in the right line. And he did not rebuke his church member. Now let's take a look at the video.
Roberta McCoy, giving faith and stand in unity with the vision of perfecting church of sowing this seed of $1,000 plus $235 and receiving the blessings to come to all that participated.
Now that's only $1,200.
Yes.
Y'all not listening to what I'm saying. If you have 1,000 plus 1,000.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna work on the other 800.
Well, that ain't what I asked you to do.
Well, our guest here on The Factor Uncensored, we have with us former pastor Jonathan Russell, pastor and journalist Dr. Ruth Olison, and president and CEO of Regal Media and journalist Todd Smith. Glad to have you all here on The Factor Uncensored, guys. Many people have been talking about Bishop Marvin Winans seeing his video on social media where a woman brought a gift, an offering up to the altar to him, and he said simply that wasn't enough. He said, 1,000 plus 1,000, that's 2,000. You're bringing up $1,200. And I was just shocked. And many people around the country are shocked as well. But first of all, Todd, let's bring you into this conversation. When you saw that video of Bishop Winans rejecting initially the $1,200, saying, look, you need 800 more here.
You never know what a person is going through. And we talk about tithes in the church being 10%. A lot of people are struggling financially, so their tithe might be zero. Their tithe might be $10. So I'm always impressed by the story of Jesus, who was impressed by the widow who bought a couple of coins, but it was a sacrifice that she made. Now, if I give you $1 million and I'm a billionaire, that's not that big of a deal. But if I give you my last, that's showing that I trust the Lord and I trust what his mission is. That's what it's more about for me. So for him to do that, I think it's in poor taste. Is why a lot of people run from the church and they believe that the church is only in for money. And when you see videos like that, I kind of sympathize with people who have that mentality and think that
Dr.
way.
Olison, your thoughts about seeing this video? You are the head of a church here in Houston, and does that do damage?
Well, anytime we see something like that, it does damage. I was very saddened by what I saw, embarrassed. Although, let me say this quickly, that does not represent the entire church. And there are a lot of people doing great work, ministering to the least of these, doing wonderful work who don't do it like that. But that is shaming, it's bad, and I apologize on behalf of the church. I agree with Todd because you look at the heart of that woman. She was so happy, and to bring her child with her, she should not have been met like that.
But does greed, when you're in that position of power like that, does greed blind you? Because he didn't see a heart. He saw $800 shelved.
Well, I don't know what greed does because I'm not a greedy person, but it's a problem, and I think pride does. He said, "You didn't hear what I said," or basically, "You didn't obey me." It's just bad. It's totally bad. It's unexplainable. It's not the heart of Christ. It doesn't look like God. It doesn't sound like Jesus. It's off.
All right, Jonathan Russell, we did a half an hour special with you here on The Factor Uncensored about leaving the church, and you were a pastor in the church. Is this part of the disillusionment that you talked about in that report when we sat down with you for more than an hour? When you see stuff like this, what are your thoughts, Jonathan?
Well, first of all, it's not something that is very uncommon in the church today. I grew up around that, and to be honest with you, I'm not very surprised at Pastor Winans' tactics and actually trying to persuade people to give more. Because see, when you have large ministries like himself, you have to pay that mortgage, man. You have to do something to make sure that people give in order to make sure that they pay that off. Or or that particular lavish life that most pastors live. And I'm not saying all of them, but that a lot of them live. And so they have to use certain tactics in order to manipulation to get people to give more, to make sure that they meet that quota. And so there's always been for years gouging at the offering table. So that's not something that is uncommon. So I've been around that a long time, man, and we practice it myself.
We'll pick up this conversation in just a moment here on The Factor Uncensored, so don't go anywhere. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We're going to pick up our conversation on Bishop Marvin Winans, who has since clarified about the video, saying he did not rebuke this church member. He simply wanted order because he wanted the senior citizens in his church to be in line first. But let's get back to our conversation with our guest tonight. And when you say you practice it yourself, what did you do when you were in the church, and did you feel bad about it?
Well, at the time, when you have a lack of knowledge and understanding about the church, especially when I started off in the early 20s, you don't feel bad about something that you're groomed, you're taught how to do at that time. But as you get older and you start studying religion, and you start studying scripture, you begin to understand that something is not right about it. So it came to a point to where, yes, I was really convicted about what I was doing, because you're really coercing people to give their last dime, and not even worry or give a care about exactly their present circumstances, their economical circumstances, or their financial circumstances, any of that. And so your job is just to make sure that everything is running smoothly there at the church, and that's the bottom line.
God, when it comes to mega churches, large churches like the one that Bishop Winans has in Detroit, is the sale too hard, the push too hard to sustain such a big entity, a church that big?
I think it can be, but I think it has to do with the heart. I think Dr. Ruth mentioned the heart. I go to a mega church, a church without walls, and we have donations and different things that we do, but I can't remember my pastor ever doing something like that, and all the bills end up getting paid. So somehow, some way, he's able to do it, but not in a way that's coercing people to give their last. But one thing I will say is, I understand the plight of people who go to churches and they have this type of controversy happens and they leave the church, but we don't do that for anything else. We don't do that for a job. We just find another job. So a lot of times when our boss pisses us off, we don't say, I'm not going to work ever again. We just go find another job. But only in the church will we say, that pastor upset me, so I'm through with all pastors. And I think that that's when we kind of mess up, because if you quit your job, you're not hurting your boss. You're hurting yourself if you don't go get another job. So I think if you give up on the church, give up on God, you're not hurting the church, you're hurting yourself. So I think a lot of people need to realize that when they get mad at one particular pastor.
And Dr. Ruth, go ahead.
Well, I think that is an excellent point. And I've been in the ministry 30 years, and we have a policy of operating based on what we have. We don't like dream big and try to get other people to pay for what we do. And we have no debt and we have no pressure. So I am not familiar with what my brother was talking about before. I grew up in the church, but I didn't have any quote unquote grooming to do that. As a matter of fact, sometimes I forget to do the offering and someone has to come do it. So.
Dr. Ruth, now you know these bills do. Don't be forgetting about the offering now. Well, guys, we're out of time. We want to thank you all for joining us here on The Factor Uncensored.